Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes, and today we will be diving into a discussion regarding the recent updates on the Gaza crisis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet are meeting to give final approval to a ceasefire deal with Hamas and a hostage exchange, amid concerns that the agreement may face delays. Israel's Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has threatened to resign if the ceasefire deal is approved. The ceasefire deal was first announced on Wednesday. However, Netanyahu then delayed a cabinet vote to approve the deal on Thursday, accusing Hamas of trying to extort last-minute concessions. Representatives of Israel, Hamas, the United States and Qatar have officially signed the deal in Doha, according to Israeli media reports. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he expects the ceasefire to begin on Sunday as planned, along with the release of the first 33 Israeli hostages. Following the announcement of the ceasefire, Palestinians and the families of Israeli hostages celebrated the news. Despite the ceasefire agreement, violence on the ground in Gaza continues, and according to Gaza's civil defence, Israeli airstrikes have claimed at least 113 lives. The first phase of the 6-week ceasefire deal involves the exchange of 33 hostages, including women, children and elderly individuals, for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Israeli troops are also expected to withdraw from densely populated areas of Gaza, with displaced Palestinians beginning to return to their homes. Additionally, hundreds of aid trucks are set to be allowed entry into the region each day. Negotiations for the second phase will commence on the 16th day, with the aim of securing the release of remaining hostages, a complete Israeli troop withdrawal and the establishment of a sustainable calm. The third and final phase will involve the return of any remaining hostages' bodies and the long-term reconstruction of Gaza, a process that could take years. We are joined by three guests today. Firstly, we have Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian. We also have Professor Ephraim Imbar, who is the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Finally, we have Surinder Singh Lally, an international affairs expert. I'd like to go to you first, Ephraim Imbar. Currently, we have the cabinet meeting to approve this deal, but as I've already mentioned, there are threats coming from senior members in Israeli politics. Why is this deal so divisive, not just within the country of Israel, but also within the politicians?
There are two main reasons. The first reason is that there is a fear that the number of hostages released will be limited because there is no agreement on the second stage of releasing the hostages. Many criticize the government for not making a deal in order to release all the hostages more or less within limited time. The second reason is the price that Israel is demanded to pay for the deal, which is a release of about 1,000 Hamas terrorists that are in Israeli jails. From the past, we know that many of them returned to terrorism. Yahya Sinwar, the former leader of Hamas, was released in such a deal, and he became the leader of Hamas. And we all know that he orchestrated, he was the architect of the October 7 atrocities on Israel's border. So those are the two main reasons for questioning the wisdom of this deal.
Thank you for joining us. The ceasefire deal has taken months of negotiations. Fighting has been going on for 15 months since the October 7th attacks. Do you think that this deal can hold, given the extent of the fighting and the extent of the devastation caused to both sides? Of course, the amount of hostages that have been held throughout the 15 months and also the devastation that's been caused in Gaza.
First of all, this deal has been in the works for some time now. In fact, I was just hearing that this deal was almost ready by August last year, and it was the Hamas that did not want the deal to be done properly, I mean the way it has come out finally. But yes, now that it is there, kind of Trump, the push came from Trump, But you see the number of hostages still they have 98, out of which they are talking about 33 to be released. So, that means they are being left with another whatever 98 minus 33, sorry my maths is kind of off. Now, the thing is, now the problem what in fact I was just listening to some people in Israel yesterday, I was talking to some of them, and what they are saying, the Israeli public is totally divided on this issue in terms of, I mean, while they are saying it is okay that these hostages are returning home. So, they are worried about what happens to the other hostages, because you see this deal is supposed to be implemented in 3 phases. The first phase is about returning these 33 people. Along with that, you know, another number of people will be coming in. The rest of the hostages are supposed to be released in the second phase, and in the third phase they are going to talk about rebuilding of Gaza, which will take about 4 or 5 years. Now, the worry in Israel currently is that even if the first phase gets implemented, Hamas will never follow up with the second phase, and that is there will be these number of people who will be there with the Gaza, with the Hamas, and they are worried that these people will never be returned home. And as a result of which, I am hearing there is a place in Tel Aviv called, you know, there is a square in Tel Aviv where they have kind of set up all these demonstrations, and also there is major tussle going on between these two groups, even among the hostages families who are saying that, you know, you are not supposed to should not go by this deal, and then there are others who are saying that the deal should be done, because till now the names have not been released. So, there is a lot of confusion happening over that right now, and as a result of which a lot of politics has also come into it, because the hostages, they are, I mean, the hostages families are blaming Netanyahu one section, and the other section they are blaming the United States and all. There is a lot of fear among especially you know, the southern districts, which are called the area is called, there are 7 districts over there, that is called a Gaza envelope, and this is the place that Hamas had attacked. Okay, these districts and these kibbutzim over there, they are located inside 2-3 kilometers of the fence with Gaza. So, this is the area that was attacked, all the killings happened in these kibbutzim and all. A lot of people are yet to go back. So, they are all very worried in terms of, you know, whether they go back, and if you give charge to the Hamas, if you give back all these prisoners, many of them are absolute terrorists who are serving a life imprisonment, all of them are being released. What happens? What if something like October 7, 2023 repeats? So, yes, there is a lot of unhappiness also, there is some fear. I would not say there is a positive response is coming yet, no. People are very worried.
Surinder Singh Lally, thank you for joining us. The UN have said recently that 91% of people living within Gaza are facing acute food insecurity. Looking at the people within Gaza and what the ceasefire deal means for them, how quickly do you think this aid that has been promised as part of the deal can get in, and what's stopping it falling into the wrong hands, as we've seen previously throughout this war?
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. It's an honor and pleasure for me to be here. And I mean, the last thing we ought to be using in our vocabulary is the word quickly. It's a subterranean conflict, which according to me has been going on since, 1948, the state of Israel came into existence. And I don't think we should look at it as a conclusive deal, because simply this is a break in the war, And as Joyita rightly said, that this is into 3 phases. The first phase is where 94 hostages will be. They have 94 hostages, 34 will be released, out of which they're going to prioritize on children, women, and men over 50. And the understanding thus far is that for one Israeli female, they will release 50 prisoners. And I think that's the reason. That's probably one of the biggest reasons of a divided house in the state of Israel, because there could be over 1,000 prisoners that could be released. And, these have to be sort of spread over 72 hours. And then they also wish to decide on the buffer zones near Rafah and northern Gaza, to where the Israeli army should be placed, because This is really a very sensitive matter. And the phase two will be discussing the end of the war. And the phase three would be the future of Gaza, who will govern, or is it going to be like a Taliban movement? America came to fight Taliban and then gave it back to Taliban. So who's going to govern? And then what would be Hamas's role in it? So according to me, it's way beyond my pay grade to comment, but this is not going to be an instant solution. It has to be taken one step at a time and see how it pans out. And obviously, Israel is a divided country, and there will be a difference in opinion. As I said, this is a subterranean conflict. It's been going on for years and years. And till the time America was in a lame duck, between two presidents and the elections, and Benjamin Netanyahu knows the game very well, really capitalized on it. So neither am I. I've really condemned the egregious attack that happened on the 7th of October, but what happened after that and has been happening ever since also needs to come to an end. So I think, the jury's still out, and it's going to be just one breath at a time, as they say. Thank you, Joshua.
Professor Ephraim Imbar, coming to you with this one. The Civil Defence Agency in Gaza have said that since the deal was first announced on Wednesday, at least 113 people have died in Israeli airstrikes. Considering the deal is so close to coming into force, is that necessary?
It's war. There is not such a thing as a war deluxe. In war, people die. And the moral responsibility for all deaths are, of course, on the conscience of Hamas. I'm not sure they have a conscience. So if the Hamas terrorists hide among civilians, which is a violation of the international law, we should expect that also some civilians will get killed in Israel's efforts to go after the terrorists. Nobody thinks that civilians are immune if they are in a war zone. So Israel tries its best. We are very good at precise targeting. Targeted killing is an Israeli invention, and we do our best to limit the Palestinian casualties. But we are not always successful because the Hamas use the civilians as a shield. Therefore, the criticism should be directed to Hamas for using the Palestinians. Actually, the Palestinians have a population-centric strategy. They shoot at our civilians. They are hiding among Palestinian civilians. And actually, they are enjoying the death of Palestinians because it serves their public relations cause.
Joyita Basu, we've had recent news coming that potentially hostages who are French nationals could be released, according to Emmanuel Macron, 2 of them, and there are also potentially 3 dual Israeli and US citizens who could be released in this first wave of 33. What do you think the geopolitical impact is on the decision to release hostages of different nationalities to just Israelis? And do you think that is a sign of the sort of global effort that there's been to get to this ceasefire deal, that potentially that could have been an assurance that was made by parties that were involved?
Well, it's primarily, I see it as, it's not going to sound nice, it's political. I mean, it is not a question of influence, this and that, nothing like that. They want to keep Trump happy. Otherwise, Trump will come after them. It's a different matter. I think out of the number of hostages, that American hostages, were there 6 or something, 3 have already died, and they are going to do it like, so basically this is Hamas's way of kind of an outreach towards these countries, simple as that, so that they can keep this thing on under pressure, Netanyahu government. Now, having said that, this is not, and think in terms of what they are getting in return, the number of actual terrorists they are getting, released, and people who have blood on their hands, who have killed, who have maimed people, who are basically, and they have to be released by Israel. And not only that, there is talk of also abandoning that, Philadelphia corridor, which is the main the main kind of pathway through which all weapons and drugs and everything come in. So, you see, I mean, frankly, this deal is a disaster. It's a complete disaster. It's a one-sided deal. Israel shouldn't have gone into it, but I guess they also do not have a choice, because Mr. Trump wants his victory ahead of January 20th, 2025, because he has said that, that is the problem with Mr. Trump, and he wants his victory and he thinks this is the way he is going to get it. And there is a lot of, as I said, they could have done without this deal.
Professor Inbar, coming back to you, the threat of one of the ministers in the Israeli cabinet of leaving if this deal is passed, he would take with him 6 MPs, 6 members of parliament, and that would leave Netanyahu with 62 members of parliament of a formation of 120. Does that leave him vulnerable, if that is the case, with such a small majority? And what could the impact be moving forward past this war and looking at politics within Israel?
Only recently, another party joined the government, giving it a larger majority. This government functioned well for 2 years, despite the fact it had only 62 members. In the political science literature, you can find some evidence for small government just having a small majority in parliament surviving well. So it is very possible that Netanyahu's government will overcome this crisis and will not fall because the departure of Ben-Gvir's party. Actually, there may be in the future other crises or other opportunities for other parties to join the government. So, so far, it seems that the government is stable despite the threats of one small party to leave the government.
Surinder Singh Lally, we don't have long left, but a final question to you. We've seen a tentative ceasefire holding in Lebanon, a potential ceasefire that could be starting from Sunday over 3 phases in Gaza. The instability across the Middle East over the recent months has caused devastation and humanitarian crises that we've not seen since potentially Second World Wars or other conflicts after. What do you think the impact will be for the people who are living within this region, who have been dealing with these wars going on in their lands, against their lands, with their forces or not? What do you think the humanitarian aspect and how will people feel in the Middle East if this deal is held?
Joshua, it's very unfortunate that even now, when I heard Professor Anbar and he was still talking about Israel's ability for precision, strikes, I'm not too sure if that's really the solution, because if this deal doesn't come through, I mean, Israel has already attacked almost 7 countries. And, France and United Kingdom, their elections also had this as a dominant issue. And if this deal doesn't come through, the Middle East could get even more involved into this. And the way we live in this world with the supply chain and the sea routes, it could be the next biggest catastrophe to happen. So my only humble submission is, unless, they don't look at the 2-state solution, I'm not too sure. We're just going to be jumping from one deal to another. And just look at the last 75 years, if using force has really paid dividends or no. I leave that to the wisdom of all the panelists and the viewers listening to you.
Joy Tabasu, we have 1 minute. Can you respond to what was said there in relation to the potential of a 2-country state being set up?
First of all, peace cannot be one-sided. Israel can offer to make peace, but there has to be peace from the other side also, that is Hamas. Hamas is even talking about ceasefire right now because they have been battered completely. In spite of that, the minute this deal was announced and this document from the Palestinian side was leaked, there were people out on the streets of Gaza, there were people out on the streets of Lebanon, Jordan, everywhere, that they again started talking about, finishing off Israel from that same old rhetoric about Israel does not have the right to exist. Number one, that came into existence, and this whole talk about this two-state solution. What two-state solution are we talking about? The Gazans had autonomy. You know, they had complete autonomy to run their state. West Bank. So now what have they done in Gaza? They have turned that whole place into a criminal enterprise. They did not, they got billions of dollars in aid. What did they do with that? They built tunnels, they built terrorist networks and all. So do you think these people, these Hamas can be responsible players? Israel, even if it wants to, it will not be able to ensure that Palestinian Authority is going to be in control of Gaza, because primarily because Palestinian Authority does not have the support of the people of Gaza. They all support Hamas. So let us talk about all these things before talking platitudes like, oh no, this should be done, there has to be peace, there has to be, it's not, we have to think in terms of reality, what is happening on the ground.
Joyita, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you, Professor Ephraim Imbar, and also thank you for joining us, Surinder Singh Lally. As we get more developments on this ceasefire deal leading up to a potential implementation on Sunday, there's only one place that will bring you all of the latest, and that's NewsX.